Welcome back to PKs Anonymous, the community of pastors' kids that is all purpose and no performance. We are so excited for this next episode. I'm personally excited about this next episode because I got my brother sitting across from me, not my real brother, just in case y'all were wondering, because I do have those. They'll come on at some point, but I won't tell you that it's them. But I'm excited about this because I got my bro sitting across from me. And as always, we give our audience a way to connect with you. So, how should our audience refer to you throughout the duration of this episode? And then when people talk about this episode later, because of how impactful it was, they'll want to have a name to go with it. So, how do we want to be known today?
Tony Walters.
Tony Walters. Tony Walters. Okay, that's an interesting. Where does that name come from? That's very specific.
I'm going to go with Tony Walters.
Tony Walters. All right. Tony Walters, y'all. We got Tony Walters with us today. Now, Tony, what region are you from?
I'm from the Midwest, but I also grew up in the South.
Okay. Interesting. We're going to come back to that. Who pastored, mother or father?
Father.
Father. And then how old were you when you became a PK?
12 or 13, right in that zone.
Right in that range. Okay, it's 12, 13. All right, now jump back. You said from the Midwest, but also the South?
Correct.
How does that work?
Well, my mother and father, they had me when they were teenagers, but they weren't married, you know?
Okay.
Then my father moved to South Florida.
Okay.
And I went to go live with my father for a little bit, so I split my time between the Midwest and the South, and so I would go back and forth between
Okay.
both.
Got you. And how often did you go back and forth?
Well, at one point I lived there in the South and South Florida, and then there was another point where I moved back to Indiana,
Yeah.
and from there I went to a year-round school, and we got a month off for spring break, fall break, Christmas break, summer. So those 4 months I would go spend living in South Florida with my father.
South Florida. Okay. Man, what was that like?
It was my first taste at a multicultural experience. We were the only black family living in a predominantly white, Jewish, and Hispanic neighborhood. Yeah.
Interesting.
And our family was blended. You know, my brother, my stepbrother, he's my oldest brother, he was half white, I was black, and, you know, we're in this neighborhood, we're the only siblings of that neighborhood that don't look like each other.
Even each other.
Even each other. And so that they always poked fun at that as well too. And I think it bothered my brother more than me.
Yeah.
But you know, we still found our way. I think growing up in that experience opened me up to knowing what it's like to live amongst other cultures. Whereas in Indiana, where I lived, I lived predominantly, you know, in a black community.
Yeah.
And so that was when I first started learning Spanish and things like that as well too at a young age. And I think it prepared me for the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, all right. I think a good way to jump into our time together is with this one recurring segment that we do every week, which is called One Word. So this is where you get to tell us what your PK experience was like in one word. All right, and then we'll dive into it, okay? So if you had to describe your PK experience in one word, capture it in one word, what would that word be?
Erratic.
Oh, erratic.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about it. Why erratic?
Because my father wasn't always a pastor. So
Okay.
you're watching someone, you're living with someone and watching someone go from one side of life to the next side of life, and you're on that journey with them.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that everyone knows that your journey to the Lord isn't as smooth as you think it's going to be when you're on the outside looking in. You know, I think even for us as kids, you don't know what all God needs you to do and be as He first calls you in.
Yeah.
God is like, God is like that relative that calls you over to do one task, but they don't tell you how many other tasks need to be done.
Right. It's one task, but before we do that one, we got to do these other ones before we.
But you love them and you there, so you're like, oh, there's more.
Right. Yep.
So when you start cleaning the house and start changing things up, you're like, okay, I need to do that too. Oh, you need that done too. Oh, and that done too. And my father was young. He had us at 19, 20 years old. So when this is all happening, we're watching a 29, 30-year-old man go through these transitions.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes you're like, that wasn't what God said. And then there was another side where you're like, oh, we have to do that too with you.
Yeah.
We
didn't want to do that. Yeah.
Before this, my father actually worked in entertainment. He was security director at a major studio down in Florida. And he was a record producer and a concert promoter. He brought Shaka Khan and Lil Richie to the beach, South Beach, in like the late 90s. Nice. He had R&B artists on his label and things like that. I remember watching him go to the studio, come home with CDs, like, yo, check out my artist. What do you think of this song? We were riding around South Florida listening to, some really dope songs from artists that you would never even know their names today. So I knew that side of him. And then I watched the side of him that was like, yo, I'm no longer working at the studio. I'm not doing the music. We're here at the church. They started him off as an usher. And you're going to come with us. Now I was like, well, we here 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day. As a kid, you want to do other stuff. Wasn't how our weekends used to be.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. There's a lot there. All right. So, because you also occupy space in the entertainment world. All right. Now, some of our guests, they won't really be able to recognize your voice because you won't sound like you by the time they watch this.
Oh, you can put a filter over this.
Yeah. Like
Can you make it deep? I want to be Barry White.
I don't know if I can make it Barry White. We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do. But because you do occupy space in the entertainment world, I'm so curious because you watched your father be in that space before getting this call into ministry. Then he's making this drastic, it may even seem, I don't know, maybe I'm putting that on you, but it may seem like this drastic shift from like the worlds that he occupied into this church world. And like when we fast forward all the way into the future, here we are. What was it? Tony Walters?
Tony Walters.
So Tony Walters is in entertainment. So I want to ask you about so much in that because I feel like there's a lot of journey and like self-discovery and some stuff that you would have had to come to on your own to be okay with that. But talk to me about that drastic shift and then even what that meant for your understanding about faith and like the secular world. What did that look like for you, for your father to make this drastic shift?
I think watching my father shift from man of the world to man of God really affected my younger brothers more than I. They say your personality is more so formed by the time you're 8 years old, right? So I think by the time I'm 12 or 13, I have a pretty good grasp of who I am, who I want to be, where I want to go, while my father's still determining which direction he wants to go. And so I was isolated from a lot of the changes because I could always run back to my mother's house in another city or state.
Got you.
But then I would go back to my dad's house, and it was a completely different world. Not that my mother didn't go to church as much, but she doesn't work in the ministry. It's a completely different journey, It's the difference between playing basketball on Saturdays but being in the league. So it's a different grind.
Or like being the coach on the court and being somebody who goes to watch the game every week, right? It's completely different.
And y'all can go to the same amount of games, but their responsibility is a little bit different than yours. I think one of the things that was erratic for us, mainly because I don't know how much people know this, but a lot of people are in the ministry, they're called to move around. Mm-hmm. So most of the time, they very rarely stay put. And I watched, we switched schools, we switched cities, we switched states. My father left Florida, moved back to Indiana, and I watched him process that.
Yeah.
And he didn't always like it. There was times he wanted to be somewhere else. Like, why did God bring me here? Why am I doing this? And you're watching your father upset with the journey that upset sometimes with where, hey, God wants me here, but I don't know why I want to be here, why he has me here when I really enjoy my life there.
Yeah.
My father was an entrepreneur. I watched his businesses. Like, hey, I'm no longer selling clothes. My father had a clothing store, a record label. I watched him. You know, when God's like pulling those things away, you're watching them mourn the loss of a previous life while also giving birth to their new life. I couldn't imagine that as a 29, 30-year-old man with 4 kids.
Yeah. Because he started so young.
Yeah, and getting older is also forgiving your parents for being young.
That's big. That's huge for sure. Okay, so it's erratic. You're jumping, right? And you are watching this shift happen, but it's not impacting you the same way because by then, did you know you wanted to be in entertainment or?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I knew that early on, and it's going to lead to a story about a church that we went through. But I do want to say one more thing just on the erratic part of it, and this is just my dad being candid with me. Before entertainment, how honest can we be here? My father actually
100% honest. That's what we need. That's what the people want. Come on,
So yeah, my
let's talk
father
about
would,
it, Tony.
if he talks about this in private, but my father did work in organized crime, and that's what helped him get a start
In entertainment.
Yeah, like record labels, clothing stores, all these other things too. And one thing my dad was always candid with me is I built a life before God, and this is where I learned. He taught me this phrase, or it's a scripture: "Only what you do for the Lord will last." And he's like, I watched God tear down everything that I built without Him involved, and you like some of those perks, but you lose some of that. And then I watch him rebuild his life with God involved, and he would always tell me, you know, what I'm doing now is going to be more impactful because nobody can take it from me. This is done the way God wants it to be done. And when I say organized crime, I literally mean organized, not like, oh, he's a street corner guy. No, organizations. I can't say those names, but my father's third-degree black belt. You know, he's somebody they would send in to help you acquiesce to demands.
An enforcer of sorts.
But what's frustrating is watching him grow into a man of the ministry, and you can no longer solve problems through those means now. You have to solve it through those means. So there's a frustration aspect of it because sometimes you're like, you know, this is an easy solution. But God's like, nah, I need you to take a more patient solution. Vengeance isn't yours, it's mine, said the Lord. So I watched my dad be frustrated with also being a part of the church because he felt like it brought him to another level of humility that the streets never asked him to be. It brought him to another level of submissiveness and passiveness that the streets never asked you to be. And so he's like, man, he's I'm his first son. He would talk to me about a lot of stuff. And he's like, I'm frustrated by this because I can't handle it like this. But when I'm in the church, I watch people say things to me, do things to me. They know that I can't respond a certain way anymore.
Because if it had been a few years ago,
this would have been a much simpler situation. But I watch him wrestle with that frustration of it as well too, and it taught me a lot. Which is, I should build my house on the rock of the Lord first, so I don't have to deal with the frustrations of knowing what it's just called your cross to bear. You know what I mean? If you know a life previous of Christ, and then you have Christ with you, you might still have the thorn in your side from your other life, and you gotta now live knowing another side of you, trusting God to lead you to the right way of things. Now, your question for entertainment. We went to a church. My father went to a church. It was a prophet. His name was Bishop. Can we say those names?
You say whatever names you feel comfortable saying.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Bishop Lloyd, he passed away a few years ago in a car accident. He was 72 years old. But he was the first prophet that I had ever encountered, and I'll never forget this day. I feel like my life started this day. I feel like all of our lives started this day. It was a New Year's revival. You remember those?
Yeah, oh yeah.
You remember those?
Shoot, some people still having them.
You remember those? Yeah. You just locked in the church all night?
Yep. Wait for it was a New Year's revival, so was it like the watch night service, like where you would wait until midnight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember those, man. And we were there all night. Yep. And there's no place you'd rather not be as a teenager than that church till midnight.
Yeah, exactly.
But that night, I remember like yesterday, he prophesied over pretty much everyone in the church, and this man truly heard from the Lord. And I'll never forget this day. He told my stepmother that she was going to have 2 more children, and they're going to be close in age of twins. Why that was such an epiphany for our family is that my stepmother she had my youngest sister, and her uterus had collapsed, and the doctors told her she can no longer have children.
Oh, wow.
But the prophet said, God said, you're going to have 2 more children, and they're going to be twins, or they're going to be very close in age. I have 2 brothers now. My 2 youngest brothers, they're 11 months apart.
Wow.
He told my father that I see you preaching in a white robe with burgundy. I forget what this called. Starts with B. Pastels, maybe. We don't say pastels.
You talking
placards? That's what it is.
Okay.
Burgundy placards. And everything that my father was working in entertainment fell down, collapsed. He moved back home to our home state, and he started working with a local church there that his mother was, my grandmother attended, and that's where he got ordained as a minister. And the day he got ordained, they gave him a white robe to preach in with burgundy placards.
What?
He told my sister that she's going to be an author. She produced her first children's book, I want to say 6, 7 years ago.
Wow. Now,
the year I'm talking about in question is year 2000.
Okay. So that's, okay, yeah.
Right. And at that point, it was like 2001 or 2. I'll say that because I know I was on my way to high school. So I was I was about 12.
Okay.
13. And he told me that I see 3 scholarships in your future, but you're going to have to listen to your dad to get them. And I always loved poetry and I love acting. I moved back home to Indiana. My mother sent me to a theater school on the other side of town. It was called a magnet school. They call it a magnet because they'll suck you in from far away and bring you to this school. So I went to a magnet school to do theater on the other side of town because I was like, I think I want to do entertainment. And fast forward all the way to my senior year, I didn't have any scholarships like the prophet had said, but I did watch my mother have 2 more children. I did watch my father get ordained as a minister. My sister hadn't yet started writing books. And I remember the night before this I get to my senior high school and I say, you know what? We have so many brothers and sisters. There's no way we can pay for college. Yeah. So I really hope the scholarship thing is true. Yeah. But just in case it's not, I'm going to join the United States Navy so that my school can be paid for. Okay. So I joined the United States Navy January 11, 2007. And I remember my father pulled me aside and said, why did you do that? So what do you mean? I need money for school. You're not going to pay for it. And my mother's not going to pay for it. But I also want a higher education. He goes, but the prophet said, you're going to get 3 scholarships. And I said, with all due respect, I need insurance. Because I didn't fully believe in Christ at that point. I was still on my own journey. You know, when you're a kid, you get dragged to church, but you haven't really encountered God yet. And I remember this night like yesterday. My school threw me into a poetry competition last minute. And the winner, it's like, you ever heard of the National Spelling Bee? Yeah. This is a national poetry contest. It's the same way. 100,000 kids compete from their classrooms to their city, to their state, to their region, to the country. Yeah. And I made it all the way to national finals, but I was already in the Navy. And I remember the day that I joined, the chief had said, I don't know why I like you, Tony Walters, but I like you. And I'll make a deal with you that if you agree to go active duty the day you graduate, I'll make a deal with you. If you get a scholarship and accepted into the school you want, I will let you go from your contract to go pursue what you want to pursue. But I need a commitment from you today that you'll agree to go active duty. So in the event that that doesn't happen, you're already ready to go. Yeah. So I was in a delayed entry program for 6 months. The night before the state championship, to get an opportunity to even go compete for nationals, I remember this movie called Angels in the Outfield. With Danny Glover, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Matthew McConaughey, a lot of legends now. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's such a good movie.
I remember the night that in the movie, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is an orphan kid, and he wants his father to get custody of him. Right. And he says, Dad, when can me and you be a family again? Yeah. And his dad says, me and you can be a family again when the Angels win a pennant. Yeah. And that means the Angels is the best team in their division. Right. Just so you know, this was a team of misfits that had no chance of ever winning anything. Right. So him saying that was him basically saying it's a long shot that we'll ever be a family. But the kid didn't know that. He's just hopeful. So he goes home that night and he prays in his bed and he goes, Father, God, if there really is a God, help the Angels win a pennant. So that
It could happen.
you remember that, JP?
Yeah,
It could happen.
it could happen.
Help the angels with penance so me and my dad can be a family again.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know prayers like that. But I remember the night before the state championship, I had lost my voice. And I go home to pray that night. And I said, God, if there really is a God, can you give me back my voice tomorrow so that I can compete and win the scholarship? And if you could do that for me, then I'll remember this day for the rest of my life. And this will be the day you planted a seed in my heart that grows into whatever tree you wanted to go through, and I'll never forget it. I woke up the next day, I still couldn't speak. So my mother drives me to the competition. I'm going third that day. I remember taking a nap in my seat, and they called me to get up to go compete. I walk up to the stage slowly, and I go to the microphone, and I know that I can't talk. I had a strep throat or something, I don't know. And I go to announce the poem I'm gonna do, and my voice is coming out as clear to you right now as it is right now. And I remember just looking up at the sky, shocked. And I go compete that day. I end up winning the state championship, and I can now go represent us in the national finals. Didn't win anything yet, but I won an opportunity to continue.
Sure.
And in that moment, I was like, yo, this guy might be real.
Yeah.
He gave back my voice. And then I go compete in national finals. I make it through the regions. I make it through top 5 in the country, and I end up placing second in the entire country, and I did get a scholarship for placing second place. And I remember calling the Navy, and I told them, hey, I got a scholarship. I missed my audition for acting school that weekend because I had to go to D.C. to compete for nationals. I sent in a tape. I get home. I won the scholarship. I called the school. I said, hey, have you gotten my tape? They said, yeah, we got your tape. We sent you a letter in the mail. Did you get it? I said, no, I didn't get it. What did it say? It said that we want to accept you into our program, and we want to offer you more scholarship money. But you'll need to come in and audition in person. And I said, well, I already got some scholarship money. I think I might have to take my acceptance as is. But I called the Navy. I showed them my scholarship. I showed them my acceptance letter, and they let me go for my contract. I went to New York to go pursue acting. And at this moment, I'm just walking with God. I'm like, wow, you've done this thing for me. The scholarship happened. Then my school ended up putting me on scholarship the second year that I was there. So I'm always torn between, was that my third scholarship or was that my second? Because I really acquired 2. But I was offered an opportunity at one more. I just turned it down. So who knows? I always felt like my goal was to give back and create my own scholarship fund. To answer your question, yes, I always knew I wanted to get into it, but it started with a prophecy long ago about getting a scholarship and my heart being set for acting. And then watching it come to life through a series of other prophecies that happened in so many people's lives. And as these things got confirmed, I just remember Bishop Lloyd and Prophet Lloyd in his church down in Florida, and us being in that New Year's revival that night, and everybody getting words that we didn't know were going to change our lives over the next 10, 20, 30 years, you know?
Yeah, bro, that's dope. I mean, so there's 2 different ways I want to go with this. But I think this one might be most beneficial.
Okay.
You knew at that age that you were going to pursue acting or entertainment? Acting. Okay.
And that's a whole nother story. We'll keep going.
Yeah. So you knew you were going to pursue acting at an early age. But also at that early age, your father, at the age that you're getting a prophecy about scholarships, your father is getting a prophecy about preaching and teaching. And he makes this transition and leaves that world. Did you ever feel a pressure to not be a part of that world because your father had kind of made a transition to a space that was kind of like somewhat averse to the world that you were looking to get into?
Yes, and I would talk to him about it. My father really became my best friend around 18 when I left. And me and him used to talk every day on the phone, 5 o'clock in the morning. We were a part of a group, and we would do a millionaire mindset call, and we read books together, and we talked every single day. And he didn't understand acting. He understood people, though, and he would always say, you know, I think his biggest fear was that he's seen entertainment before. He didn't want me to get swallowed up by the sharks that swim in these waters.
Yeah.
And so it really became down to an identity thing about you need to know who you are before you walk in those doors because X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And he would tell me these things, and he would always, you shouldn't do this type of role because of this, and you shouldn't do that type of role because of that. And we had a battle back and forth for me trying to explain to him how this is okay. Like I'm telling this particular story. I have my own morals and ethics of certain roles I will and won't do, but I also think things that fall within this particular parameter, I feel like our Father is wise. He knows God understands comedy. I think he understands drama. He also understands what's real, what's fake. But I think it's just a matter of what stories we're going to tell, what roles we're going to play in those. And so I try not to do anything that, and my father's really in my ear about it too. Like I don't want to do anything that's blasphemous. I don't want to do anything that's going to break our moral code of what we believe the sanctity of marriage is. I don't do any of those particular things, and that could be a hindrance to your career as well too because of the opportunities that come your way. I turned down a lot of things that normal actors would just say, dude, it's a job.
Yeah.
Do the job. But you can't. Because, I have my own dad to answer to, I have my own father to answer to, and I do think we do have a responsibility to what we will and won't portray.
Sure.
And I also never wanted to do something that I think would bring shame back to my family, And my dad would be the biggest vocal about it. He would tell me, if you do this or you do that, don't even bother showing up to Thanksgiving. Don't even come home. Don't even do that. I'll disown you. Change your name.
For portraying a role.
Yeah. Anything you do in this particular realm like this or that, don't come home.
Wow. Like, how do you process that? Like,
I would just tell them.
So I know. So let me backtrack on my question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I know you don't want to do a thing that would bring shame upon your family, but at the same time, having your own conviction about what that means and for your own career is its own separate thing. So as you're hearing these sorts of things from your father, like, how are you processing that and then internalizing or not internalizing this messaging that's coming from your father that's saying, hey, look, I know you in that world, but if you do, that's it.
I think as a kid, you know how you're a kid, your parents, you start to know your parents.
Sure.
Like, when they're bluffing, when they, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, look, you're going to love me regardless
of
what it is. And I know that. This here is a fear tactic to keep me in alignment with what your viewpoints are in life. But luckily for him, we had the same views. So it wasn't too big of a struggle. I was like, that, you don't have to worry about that. I would never do that. But what you don't know is when you're on a journey as well, too, how much there's a certain temptation is a real thing, right? You can't serve God, you can't serve money, right? So there's a certain point in every actor's career, entertainer's career, where it's like, all right, I could do this job because it pays X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And no one in this circle is gonna blame me for it.
Sure.
It'd be good. It could work well for me.
Yeah.
But if I do that, then I know my family will misunderstand this. My grandmother will not understand that. My cousins will joke about this and that. And then you have that battle, right, where you can't make the best professional decision for you based off of your own personal beliefs and your own religious beliefs. And so I think, and this is not a knock, I think entertainment is one of those worlds where the more liberties you're willing to take, the further you probably could go, the faster. I would say the faster you could probably go. But I think you can go very far as well, too, doing it the right way.
Sure.
Whatever the right way is. I mean, in alignment with God.
And with your standard and what what your convictions are. I'm curious, are there things that you've said no to solely off the basis of familial acceptance?
Oh, absolutely. I had an opportunity to be on a really hit show at one point. This was in the mid-2000 teens. 15, 16, and I had just got like my first representation, and I had a straight to director, straight to producer thing. For anyone not in entertainment, what that means, suppose you're on a job interview, but they send you straight to like the hiring manager, you skip out all the other points. So they're like, hey, you're gonna go straight to this person, and this will be an audition in person, and you don't have to go through the multiple rounds. And it was a hit show. The job paid, I don't know, at that rate, that show probably $40,000 an episode.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was an 8 episode guarantee.
And you were how old at this point?
26.
Okay.
Yeah, about 26, 27.
Okay.
And acting didn't take off for me like that, by the way, when I first started. Like, my first couple of years in New York City, I ended up being everything but an actor, but there's a whole story into that.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do that. Even though every actor would want this show on their resume, I couldn't.
And why couldn't you?
Conviction, personal convictions, religious convictions.
Okay.
Also, no, my family wouldn't like it, things like that as well too. And even if the show wasn't asking me to do too much, not too much of a stretch, it's on cable TV, so you can only do so much on FCC airwaves.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is an HBO,
Exactly.
or Cinemax. They're two different worlds. But even still, it's like, where I'm from, this is just not going to work. So I had to tell my representatives, hey, I can't do that. Hey, I can't do that. And I think sometimes they would be upset with me about it, because it'd be much easier to just represent somebody who's willing to go out there and do whatever it is that you set up, do whatever interviews you set up for them. I want to keep. You want a question on that, or can we pivot to the things some more things?
No, well, I do have more questions, but if there's something that on your heart to share, let me go for it.
Okay, so acting wasn't always taking place for me, but there was a reason for that, right? I think I told you that the prophecy is what got me, and watching it come to life, I think, is what really got me even more interested in Christ and God and things like that. My father even baptized me the year after I moved to New York. Came home, he was baptized me, everything. But I think I think every Christian needs to get to this point, right? God says, text me and see that I am sweet. But there's more to God than sweetness, and there's also more to God than blessings, and there's also more to God than you getting your way all the time. His relationship with you is not some cosmic Santa Claus, There became a point in my life where it was like, God fishes me in, how he reels me in, right? Through watching his prophecies come to life, watching entertainment happen, watching him set this foundation in my life and put me on the trajectory that I always wanted to be on, right? But then there's another part of him that's like, just so you know, that isn't all that I do.
Sure. Absolutely.
And you need to know that. And you cannot find your identity in this.
Yep.
And around 2011 or 12, I couldn't find a job. I went through a couple of breakups. God was just trying to get me alone. I had yet been alone. I was still in relationships from like high school to college, while all the scholarship and prophecies things were coming to light. But I'd yet to having them long time where it's just, I wake up every day and my only answer is to myself and to God. I still always had someone else in the picture. And I knew God was calling me to be alone, so I would just run from it. I run from relationship to relationship. And then it finally gets me alone. And at this moment, so many things started changing in my life. My grandmother had passed away. My brother had committed suicide. And this leads me to the next part of growing up. And I remember my brother had, my older brother, the one who didn't look like me, we went through so much stuff. I think it affected him more, growing up and being a part of those changes. I could always kind of go back to my mother's house and get away from the tumultuous, whatever. The life move. You're moving around a lot. You're changing schools a lot. You're changing churches. You're just so much stuff. Your friend groups are changing. And my brother was 26 and he had committed suicide. And I remember I sat down with my dad and we talked, and I'd never seen my father cry a day in my life until that day. And we talked on the phone, and he said, do you think that I was a bad father? I said, no, I don't think so. But this, remember, I said, getting older is forgiving your parents for being young. And watching my brother change cities, states, schools, friend groups, church groups, so much, I think he struggled to try to find identity and grounding in the midst of being there was my father was going through so many different life changes.
Yeah.
And I just remember telling my dad, no, I think you did a great job with everything that you were given, and while also still trying to, 29,
Yeah.
you're 30, you know, you're still building your life at that point.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think a lot of it took a toll on my brother as well too. And he was married, and I think the marriage had fell apart, things like that as well too. And I remember in his note he had wrote that he felt like nothing in his life had went right. Everything that he loved either got taken away from him or he could never pursue. He was really good at everything from football to music to he played the drums at the church and things like that. He was good running back at the school they went to in Florida, but he had to leave that behind and move to Indiana with my dad as he continued to do more things with the ministry. And I think that shook up their lives a little bit more. I remember just telling my dad, I think you did the best with everything you had to do. You know, you were going through some changes as God was calling you in another direction, and you know, it's your family that called to follow you too. But I think sometimes, you know, and this is whether you're a preacher, you know, a business owner, whatever it is that you do, you know, every choice that you make and other people are under your leadership or under your thing, you have to always double check and check
Yeah.
in with them to make sure that how are they doing through the changes?
Yeah.
You know, what do you need? And sometimes I think my father was just head first in the work, head first in the church, head first into what needed to be done. That oftentimes my stepmother was really making sure that the family was good and taking care of a lot of things too. Because you know, you get older. I'm not saying my dad was absent; he was always there.
Sure.
But you know what I mean. There's a difference
Absolutely.
between being there and being present.
You're big into poetry. I used to be too. I actually competed in one of those competitions. Younger. I think it was a earlier stage competition, so it was like earlier in high school, so
What's it
not
called?
senior year. I forgot. I mean, it's like the National Poetry something something.
Poetry Out Loud National Recitation Contest.
It was a recitation contest.
It
Yeah.
was that one.
Yep.
The
And
National Poetry Out Loud Recitation Contest.
it
Do you
might
know
have
what?
been. It might have been. I don't know. I don't remember. But it might have been that.
It
And I
was that
remember
one.
I had to do two poems.
Yep.
One I chose from. Anyway,
Their
that's
website.
no. I did not choose from their website. They had parameters that you had to choose, and I chose my own poems that fit. One of them was it was an earlier one I did. I did Theme for English B. I did Mother to Son,
Mm-hmm.
and then I did another one from old school guy, like 1600s, like John something.
Yeah.
And it was such a dope poem, bro. Anyway,
And that's the third poem you do if you make it through the first two rounds.
and I ended up doing that one because my dad had to take me to this competition or whatever.
What is that contest?
Yeah, so I did that. All that to say, I really love poetry as well, and I used to write. To speak to your point about presence, I remember writing a poem, and I don't think anybody ever knew that I wrote it, but it was significant to me because I wrote a poem. No. My school saw it because I turned it in as an assignment. I wrote a poem that talked about the present absent father. It was because back then there was a term that people would use for fathers who weren't around, right? And it was like, absent fathers.
Mm-hmm.
And the theme of the poem was the present absent father.
Hmm.
So it's like you're always there, but you ain't there. You're always presently here, but your mind is on work or the church or the business. So, so 100% understand what you're saying, right? Like there was a difference between, yeah, like dad is there, like he's around, like we I see him all the time. But in terms of like the engagement of what's being held down, understanding like your stepmother was getting a lot of that done, 100% understand.
Yeah. That was a very interesting time in all of our lives as well, too, and a big turning point. And I just comforted my dad. I comforted him in those moments, and I just told him I think you did a wonderful job with the best as you can do because I don't know what to expect. I'm actually on my way to having my first kid now, right? And
Yeah.
I'm twice.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm twice the age that my parents were when they started, and I couldn't imagine half my life ago
Yeah,
having
man.
a child
Yeah.
and trying to figure out how to instill
Yeah.
lifelong lessons, and then while I'm still a teenager, trying to learn my own lifelong lessons.
Yep. Yep.
Because now, at twice that age, I'm still like, a baby's gonna trust me.
Yeah. Seriously. This baby ain't got no choice but to trust you, right?
Right.
So, you know what I think is interesting for somebody like myself who, when I was born, I was a PK. You know, my father was already a pastor. My family had been pastoring for generations and generations, right? So we were already in this, but my father was a pastor, but he was also young,
Yeah.
right? For you, your dad was young, period. He was like young, right?
Yeah.
So he's young and he's making all of the decisions that young people make who are trying to navigate being parents and also being separated from the mother of their child. But then also he makes a transition later on. So he's growing up in his faith. But then he's making the decision to then go into ministry, which now there's a whole nother way of relating to this man that presumably you're having to do in relation to how you've learned to associate with this
Yeah.
man, you know? So I would love to kind of hear what that relationship with your dad looked like pre and post. What dynamics shifted, if any?
Well, the beautiful thing is, I felt like growing up, like I used to watch my dad come in the house, do whatever he had to do, leave back out again. Come in the house, do whatever he had to do, leave back out again. This is pre-ministry,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Because he was a busy man. He
and I
was
never knew. Again, I tell
yeah.
you, my father. I never knew what my dad was doing pre-ministry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just know we lived in a gated community. We had a wonderful home and all these other things.
Yeah.
We went to private school. I just knew that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then I get older. He tells us what's going on. He tells me anyway.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching. As you know, what's interesting. My father was becoming a man right around the time I got really cool with him. You know what I mean? When I'm 18 years old, he's 36 now. I'm
Okay.
36 now. So I'm looking for answers to life as I go to create my own. But this was right around the time that he was fully developing into who he is, becoming who he is today, right? And I felt like I got a more present version of my father as he was in the ministry, but a lot of it was because I felt like I sought it out.
Yeah.
And then I also came to the conclusion that I just don't think that my dad is good with kids. I think he works better with teenagers and young adults. I think he has he's the type of person that needs to have real conversations with you about real things. And I think the monotony that comes into toddlers and preteens
Brother.
is just not his speed.
I get it. I get it.
And I remember telling my little brothers this. I said, look, y'all, he's not Mr. Dad. You're not gonna fall in love with him until you get older.
Yeah.
But right now, he's the drill sergeant.
Yeah.
Do this, do that, do this, do that, and he's off to do his thing. He may make it to your game, he may not. He may, but as you get older, if my dad's real good, here's some life lessons. I'm gonna give you some life lessons, some words of wisdom. I'm gonna show you something, how to do something. I'm only gonna show you one time, and then you're on your own. And I'll come back and monitor it later.
Yeah.
But I always saw my dad as like the house police. He would always come home, spot what wasn't done, what needed to be done, and then he would be back out again. And that was what my life was like when I was a kid. So I used to, every time the garage door went up, I was like, oh, Dad's home.
Yeah.
And we used to scramble like roaches, like,
Yeah.
oh, shoot, make sure this done, make sure that's done. Because
Yeah.
he was just like, I don't know what he was going through. I don't know, again, I don't know what my dad's day-to-day life looked like before the ministry. But I always knew whenever he came home, whatever he was going through, I think his stress and frustrations of that particular life sometimes will blow back on us. Then I watched him become part of the ministry, and I watched him grow into a more patient person, a more present person, a more all these things. And What's frustrating is people who didn't know the evolved version of him that knew him before that. And I would hear stories, your dad's a preacher now. Him? Oh, no, he da-da-da-da-da. He did this, he did that. He said this, he said that. I'm like, be that as it may, he's a completely different person now. And it's hard for people to believe that.
Sure.
But that's really what God does. He will turn you around completely to where you're unrecognizable to people who knew you before.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to be up close and personal with that because we talked every day. Every day. He's my best friend. And I watched him grow into the man he is today.
Yeah.
And I would go to war for his new identity all the time and say, you don't know that. He's actively doing this. My father said on the board of ABSA, Apostolic Bible Students Association, chairman to the bishop at the church as well too. I can't recall all the titles off the top of my head.
Sure.
But now he does community outreach, those things as well too. Set up a pantry that gets done every single week in our city, a shoot drive that gets done monthly as well too. And when I tell people these things that knew him prior to that, it's like, I can't believe that that's what he's doing. I was like, yeah, that's who he is.
Yeah.
I watched him grow into this person.
I want to talk about watching him grow. Because you said earlier that at 18, your father grew into your best friend. What happened around that time?
Well, I was isolated. I left. I moved to New York. I didn't have any family around me. At that time, a cell phone was a family member to me. So I used to hold this thing close to me because it was the only connection I had to back home. And so whenever it rang, it was getting a slice of life, a slice of home while I was away. And I've been away from home since then. I've never moved back. So me and him will have in-depth 2-3 hour conversations. The way New York is set up is you walk a lot, You walk everywhere. And I use those conversations, those times to have conversation with my family and catch up with them. So I was very active in being proactive and communicating with everybody, and him in particular, because his schedule wasn't like most people's. Most people, hey, I can't answer the phone right now, man, I'm at work. Hey, I can't do this right now because fill in the blank. He, on the other hand, hey, hold on real quick. Hey, put that thing down over there. Hey, what was you saying now, son? Oh, 1 second. Okay, the delivery can go around the back. We got this going on. He could always pick up the phone for me, no matter what, at any hour of the day. So if I knew if there was anybody I needed to talk to, I could call him and he could pick up the phone, no questions asked. He just could. And I think what changed the most for him is really getting involved with the community. One thing my dad told me about, I never forgot, he said, if you're depressed, it's because you're not doing enough for other people. And he said, every day I'm out there and I'm working with the community and I'm working with people. You don't realize how blessed you are till you sometimes are around people who don't even have half or a third or a quarter of what you have. But yet somehow there's a smile on their face. You're depressed because all you can see is your own problems. And he said, that's who I used to be. Somebody who was upset, frustrated, because all I saw was my own problems and pursuits. And I think getting involved with ministry and being involved with God as he allows you, God uses it as a proxy. So you begin to see beyond your own community. How can I be used today? As most people would ask. And God says, well, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. I need you to be useful here. I need you to be useful there. And I think watching him go through that process every single day, every single week and month, he became a more well-rounded person on people and what they go through and the needs of others, while also still trying to find time for your own personal pursuits. I think that was the biggest change, is him being involved with people in an effort to better their lives or to be some sort of a blessing to other people on the day.
That's so good. So he's making this change in his life, right? And over time it's happening, right? Did you ever feel like the change he was making in his life required a change for you to make in your life or your pursuits of life? Because you're still young at this point. Did you ever feel that pressure to change up because of what your father was now doing as a pastor?
No. I feel like Because I was away, as this was all happening. Like when I was 12 or 13, I still went to year-round school, so I got to be with my dad 4 months out the year, whereas
Gotcha.
my other brothers were there 8 months out the year.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? I mean, 12 months out the year.
They got a
right?
different experience.
So, a big part of who I am is a balance between him and my mother. And my mother was very loving and supportive, and I wouldn't necessarily say I don't want to call it religious dogma, but to a degree. You know how, like, hey, you shouldn't do this because of your beliefs or because of my mother was like, go have fun, do that role.
Yeah.
Who cares? It's just acting. Or, hey, you good.
Yeah.
I know who you are. You know who you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? So my mother was free of a lot of dogma, per se. And I wouldn't call it bad dogma or good dogma. It's just there's no other. And my mother's a Christian too, but she's not in the ministry, so it's different. You know, it's just a big difference.
Very.
And so I never really felt the pull or the need to change up what I was doing, so to speak, because I felt like I was a good balance between both of them.
Gotcha.
My father was extreme, my mother was the balancing rod. And it was
Gotcha.
like, you know what I mean? So I was able to get both messaging and then find my own path in the middle of both messaging.
When you were with Dad though, did you ever feel like that balance was a little misunderstood?
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is where, my father would be accusatory. See, that part of your personality?
That's your
right
mama.
There? Yeah. You get that from your mom.
Yeah. Yep.
And then vice versa. You go to my mom's house, see
That's
that little
your...
part, that's your dad.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever they said whatever it was, they didn't like whatever it was that they were saying. You know what I mean? But then this is where I would go to war for who they are. I said, no, that's not my dad. That's who you remember my dad to be. No, that's not my mom. That's who you remember my mom to be. She's a new creature now, too. You're a new creature as well. I don't know if people know how teenage relationships go, but when they end, it's not like it was some special, kind thing. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even have the emotional capacity at that point to be
end
amicable.
things amicably, yeah.
Right, your brain isn't fully formed till 25.
Yeah, you don't have that opportunity.
So I'm sure whatever it was tumultuous.
I'm sure. So I want to talk about this because I'm sure those of y'all are tapping in with this too. That I don't know what it's like to have separated parents, divorced parents. I don't know what that's like, but I do know what it's like to walk into spaces and the truth of me is misunderstood. So I'm interested to kind of hear, like, when you're now he was in South Florida. Had he made the transition to ministry in South Florida, or was that more in Indiana?
That happened in Indiana. So in Florida, he worked. He started working for the church at that point.
Okay.
Had him as an usher. Then he was over the music ministry, and then he got. Then he got the prophecy about being ordained, and then he went to Bible school. Then, this is all happened in Florida. Then he got called home to Indianapolis.
Okay.
And then he got ordained as a pastor there, and he used to preach every third Sunday at the church and things like that too.
In Florida, were you still at home? I know you're year-round school and all that stuff, but are you still at home? Like, at what point are you in New York and he's in Indiana?
That's when I'm an adult now.
Okay, you're an adult. All right.
I'm 18 now.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Okay, you're 100% pursuing acting. Your dad is a pillar in this church. Mm-hmm. When you go back, I'm sure there's a lot of misunderstanding about who you are and what you're doing and the level of acceptance in that particular community, or even himself.
It wasn't.
No.
He was very proud of me because we talked every day. So he really had a good pulse on who I was, what I was doing, and where I was going.
Sure.
And he always talked about what I was doing glowingly. And even if it was a put down to other people. Like, look, my son's out there, he's pursuing acting. He ain't gonna be like one of them other actors that's doing this and
It's the
doing that.
caveat. The caveat.
He doing this, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So whenever I came back home, it was, your father's very proud of you, man. He speaks highly of what you're doing and where you're going. It seems like you carry yourself pretty well out there. And I go,
That's good.
Yeah, I am.
That's really good. So even in your absence, he was kind of cultivating a particular acceptance of you.
He was an advocate for me in my absence.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so strong.
And then when I would go home, he got a relationship with everybody. Like, there are certain things even my publicist couldn't get done in the city. My father could make a phone call and say, oh, you want to do that? I'm going to call the news station right now because they cover a lot of the stuff we do at the church. I can get you in there and you can talk about this and talk about that. He'll make a phone call and my team will hit me back and say, hey, how did you get that set up? I go, my father. You know what I mean? He's been advocating on my behalf in the city for so long that when I come back now, it's really a phone call to get things done.
Yeah.
But I also find that I have an honor to uphold, and so I always want to make him proud and the city proud as well too, because I also know they're speaking highly of what I'm doing. So that also plays a role in what I'm gonna do anyway, because you don't want to let people down if people watching you, you know. And so I try to hold myself to a high standard. At least I think I do.
No, absolutely, and that's the wonderful part about it, right? Like, we get to honor who we are, who we come from, and where we come from, while being true to who we are and who we've been created to be. And I think that's kind of, the next part of the question.
That's beautiful that you use that word. That's his favorite scripture. Honor thy mother and thy father, and your days shall be long upon this earth.
But here's the not to go down this rabbit trail here, but I think for a lot of people, especially for a lot of PKs, that particular text had been used not to talk about honor, but to talk about acquiescence, which is, you don't really want me to honor you. You want me to acquiesce to what you want me to do and who you want me to be.
Right, it can be used as a form of control.
100%.
Or personality manipulation.
100%. But
I think he used that too.
But it seems like he grew into some. I mean, especially if he's advocating for you and protecting your image to the people who might have a misunderstanding.
So this is what I've come to learn too, and now I'm gonna get real. I think, and my brothers had to tell me this, and my sisters had to tell me this, is that I think sometimes, because I was so close to him, I felt like I kind of, to a degree, think a lot like he thinks. I don't think it's much of a fight with me, but I also see his point of view in life, and that makes sense to me.
Sure.
So, but my brothers and sisters had told me this, that sometimes my dad would, where you're trying to use someone as an example. Your brother's this, your brother's doing. I would get used as a weapon against my siblings, and I wasn't trying to be that. So, but they, it's like, hey, you should be doing it like this, you should be doing it like that. You see how your brother honors me, and look at how his life is going. You dishonor me, your life could go a completely different way. And I'm like, you don't need to say
that. Yeah.
But Homeboy was really cool about it. It never stirred up animosity
between you and your siblings.
Between me and my siblings.
That's good.
It had the opposite effect. They also really saw me as an example too, and would call me for advice. And my mom, my stepmom, she would always tell me on my father's side. She was like, "Can you call your brother? Can you call your sister? They only listen to you." I was like, "Okay, cool. Let me call them." And what's the problem? And I say nothing different than I think my parents say, but they hear it differently from me. But part of the reason why they hear me is I also think that my father did a great job at edifying me, and I did a good job at trying to uphold the ideas or ideals that he set forth. And so I think you hear lessons differently from somebody you view as a peer versus somebody you view as a parent. When a parent tells you something, it feels like manipulation or it feels like control.
Sure.
But a brother tells you something, it feels like friendly advice.
Yeah. And, I think there's something in the dichotomy of experiences, because for you, a lot of your experience was, at least in those most formative years, was having a father that you weren't necessarily sure what he was doing, but
No clue.
yeah, no clue. All right.
We have no
Yeah,
clue.
no idea what your dad's doing, but you're still able to take in like principle, right? Principle with ambiguity. Whereas for maybe some of your siblings, there was principle with no ambiguity. So you might assume that a principle is to be practiced in a particular way that you're seeing it, rather than the freedom to really own yourself in how you're exercising those principles. So that's where this whole concept of like just freedom of identity and purpose comes in, right? Where it's like you were really clear early
Right.
that I'm going to do this. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pursue acting. But within that, I'm going to be true to who I am, my principles, and make sure that I'm honoring of who I am, where I come from, and what I believe. Whereas I think for even people like me, where you clearly see a thing in front of you, and there's no question about what you see, and then you hear the principles along with what you see, you make the assumption that that's how you are to exercise those things. So for you, it seems like not only did you have the opportunity to develop a sense of self very, very early on, where you knew what you wanted to do and what you wanted to pursue, but it seems like over time, even with the shifts in what your father was doing, you've been able to maintain it fairly strongly.
Yeah, but I think the difference of it too is like, and this is where I love God, is I don't know who I would be or where I would be um, without that prophecy to change my life and the scholarship to change my life. I
Yeah.
think watching that come to fruition at such a young age was so impactful that there was no doubt that this is the way that I should be going because I watched it come to life
Yeah.
over the course of years.
It's
And
just so clear.
it's so clear.
Yeah.
This is where I'm going.
Now, refresh my memory. When you talked about the prophecy, did it include acting and entertainment? I thought it was just the scholarships.
It's just the scholarships.
Okay.
But I was, my mother had put the gift of poetry in my life. I was getting suspended from school a lot, so she tried to find
Okay.
a way to like.
What you getting suspended from school for?
I think growing up with your parents separated and you bouncing
just
around
like,
city to city, state to state, you trying to figure out who you are in the midst of it, and sometimes that could lead to misunderstandings in the classrooms. Uh, what it was, I used to finish my work up fast. I didn't want to act like I was bad, but I used to finish all my work first. I was smart. I finished all my work first, but when I was done, I would bother everybody else.
Okay.
And that became a source of disruption where the teacher would say, hey, listen, your son is being disruptive to other students that need to learn.
Yeah.
He's done, but he needs to sit quietly.
Yeah.
Couldn't do that. So my mother gave me a poetry book and was like, hey, you need to find something else to do with me. And words became this amazing puzzle to me.
Yeah.
And when I learned that you can rhyme them, I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now I'm on this pursuit of how to make the craziest words rhyme with each other. So I would sit home and read the dictionary, and so my family would laugh at me about it. But so when the scholarship appeared, and it happened in the form of poetry, it was a seed that was already being planted from the time I was 8 years old. But I knew that I wanted to act as well too, and it was me going to this magnet school on the other side of town and doing theater and acting and poetry. The first play I ever did was Othello. So it was a marriage of both worlds.
Yeah.
It was poetry meets theater. And I was like, oh, I can do this. This is great.
That's dope.
And there was nothing I've ever done since that's been as difficult as that.
Oh, I'm sure. With Othello?
Yeah, the next play I did was A Raisin in the Sun.
Oh,
This is
nice.
where Tony Walters comes from. The lead character in that was Walter Lee Younger.
Got you. I'm about to say, Tony Walters, where did you get that from?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice, bro. All right. So we have a segment on here called The Truth Is.
Okay.
Okay. And it's the opportunity for you to set the record straight about anything. All right. So understanding growing up as a PK, people see you a certain way. I know your experience is a little unique, but I'll be interested to see what you come up with. But the truth is a segment where you get to say, people thought I blank, or people thought blank. The truth is blank.
Okay.
So Tony Walters gets to set the record straight about anything, and we kind of want to hear what you want to set the record straight, and we'll see where that takes us.
Okay. So people think that, especially if they meet me now, people think that because my father works in the ministry, that's why I believe in God. The truth is, my father was in organized crime growing up. Then got found by God in the ministry, changed his life, and I still didn't believe until I had my own personal experience with God. And the truth is, I didn't believe in God because I got brainwashed or I kept going. Someone kept dragging me to church to do this. It became all exploration and relationships and experiences with God that ultimately showed me that I can trust Him over time. Yeah. So the truth is, I did not get involved with God because my family was in the ministry. I got involved with God because He got involved with me.
That's good. What did that look like for you? Getting involved with you, right? Like you having your own encounters and experiences. What did that look like for you?
The greatest time I could explain this was around. It was three years after I got baptized. I got baptized in 2008. I still think I was searching, But around 2011, I went through a bad breakup, and then I lost the job that I had at that time, and then I was on food stamps, and there was no acting job to be found. I was broke. I was down. I was out. Nobody loved me, romantically speaking.
Yeah.
And I was alone.
Yeah. Single, alone, broke.
Home government assistant.
Yeah.
No one talked about how hard that day is when you got to walk into the facility with your hat in your hand and say, listen here, I need the stamps.
Yeah.
As a man, that hurts your pride, even when I was only 23.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting is I signed up for this tip service for catering and things like that. And I lived with 5 other people at that time. We were all actors living in the same house. And I had nowhere to go, nowhere to be. So, and I couldn't afford to go anywhere either, just so we're clear. I sat in the house and I would read my Bible and I would listen to worship music and I would just pray and fast. And I got to learn so much about God while I was by myself. And I always say, God is the person that's waiting to talk to you when the party's over. It's hard to hear everything yes, we all want good times. But when it's really time to clean up the party and everybody's gone, the music is shut off, you can now hear Him a little bit better. And there was no party of a relationship, no party of a job, no party of acting, no party of anything. It was just me at home, alone, broke, God cleaning up everything. Yeah. And I just watched Him take care of me. Some random job would pop up and it was just enough to meet my needs.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, rent just got taken care of. I remember one time I was working for this catering company. I'll never forget this year. I'll never forget. The 31st was coming up of December, and I did not have rent for January 1st, and this was 2014, I think, headed into 2014. And I did one temp job at that time. And I usually fast in December because my birthday's around there. By the time I'm done giving information, you might as well just not even shade me out.
So far, it's great. So far, you did a good job. So I
usually fast around that time. My father's birthday is around that time, so we usually would fast and pray together. Yeah. And I remember fasting during that month, and that might have been right around the time I think I got to get to speaking in tongues. It was right around then that I did one job, and it wasn't enough to meet my needs. And somebody called me back from that one job. They were the director of marketing for Nickelodeon. We had catered their holiday party. Okay. And the director over there had got my contact, and he said, hey, listen, you did such a really good job at our holiday party. I thought my own personal party at the end of the year, and I would love if you would be the caterer or the bartender for it. And it was on the 31st, headed into the 1st, and he said, and I'll pay you X, Y, and Z to do it. And it was just enough to meet my needs. And I remember praying and fasting during that month to, hey, God, you've been taking care of me month by month by month by month by month. This month, we just ain't got it.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it's coming from.
I don't know where it's going. Yeah.
But I get a call on the 30th. Say, are you free tomorrow? And I'm like, man, God, this is crazy. And over the course of my life, I've learned that God is never late. He's always right on time. But sometimes He stretches us to He makes you walk
Yeah.
up to the edge of the cliff just to see
Yeah.
if you're willing to jump.
Yeah.
And it's like the ram in the bush. I just want to know if you're going to sacrifice him or not.
Yeah.
And he's just watching. Oh, he's really about to sacrifice him. I'm just playing, man.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I made something else.
Yeah.
But I've watched him do that in my life so many times
Yeah.
that I ultimately just know that the journey, it's the walk that he's taking me on before I get to that point of him protecting me, and what you're learning in that process of reading your word and fasting and praying and trying to keep faith is important. Faith is easy when everything is going well,
True.
but faith is really, it's the journey in between. You know, God says, "I'll carry you from glory to glory." It's that two. In that middle. It's that two between that last glory and that next glory, where you don't know how many O's is on that two. You know, how many O's is on this two?
That is hilarious.
Because I'm ringing these O's right now.
Yeah, ringing these O's and taking these L's.
Right, but in the middle of you monkey barring your way through these O's that keep popping up, you're building strength, you're building character, you're building trust, you're building wisdom and knowledge if you're studying at that time, and then you get to the end and God's like, oh, by the way, you can let go now. There's something for you to land on. You're like, oh, there's the next glory.
Yeah.
And watch them get involved with me through these rings, and that's what's been a very beautiful experience.
That's good. So I got one more question for you before we kind of go into like my closing questions. And I want to know how and maybe even what allows you to hold on to your sense of identity and purpose. Because especially as a believer who is in this particular space, and this is not necessarily because you're PK, right? Like you've just talked about that. But because you are in a space that can often be seen so, or it could be seen as so anti-church, anti-faith by people who are in faith and church. How do you hold on to your sense of identity and purpose of like knowing what you're here for, why you're here? What compels you to hold on to that sense? I mean, honestly, 13, but especially as you're pursuing it as an adult, 18 in New York, and now you are where you are doing what you're doing. Like, what has allowed you to hold on to that sense of identity and purpose for so long?
Sense of identity and purpose in regards to
you, like what you're here on earth to do.
Okay, nothing that I personally do. What I found is that thing when God says nothing can pluck you out of my hand, no one, not even you. Like, there's times where I tried to live counter to my identity, and God won't even let me. He'll pull me back in.
Yeah.
There's been times where opportunities may pop up that I could be right for, and I'm down if I want to do it. Yeah. But it might fall through. God won't even let me do it. I'm like, man, I have this new saying now that I'm married, and God is a lot like this too. Oh, that's beautiful now that I think about it. I always say, people say, what was it like being married? Well, you make a lot of changes, one. Two, you now have like an accountability person that's like right there every single day.
Yeah.
And my wife is very vocal about things. Like she can't notice something and not say something.
Sure.
She got to just tell you, you know?
Yeah.
It's annoying. But I always say, and the phrase is, someone says, why do you love your wife? Well, she won't let me destroy myself in peace. If I want to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, eating whatever I want, drinking, whatever, she won't let me do it in peace. She got to say something about it.
Yeah.
To the point that you don't even want to do it because I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So it's a good type of thing because I have a sleep schedule now. You know what I mean? God is the same way. He just won't let me destroy myself in peace.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. man, you know what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah.
And God's like, nah.
Now we got plans.
I won't let you do that.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm about to turn this whole thing up in a minute.
Yeah.
And that's what's allowed me to keep it, because there's been times I remember I was in a relationship with someone once before, and we didn't have the same belief. I found myself at a temple once, and I'm only here because the person that I'm with wants me to be here with them. But while I'm here, I'll make sure I keep all my prayers directed towards God, regardless of what statues they bring out. You know?
Yeah.
But I watched this relationship crumble and fall through for no fault of my own. It just ultimately came back to, hey, you know what? Probably won't work because my family won't even accept the fact that you look different than us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why didn't you tell me that 8 months ago before I loved you?
Yeah.
But now it's becoming a thing where it's like, I got to end. And you didn't do anything wrong. I watched jobs end like that where I didn't do anything wrong. But God is like, I'm protecting you, and you don't even see that I'm protecting you.
Yeah.
I'm going to make things, when you're trying to go a different way that's separate of me, I'm going to pull you back in.
Yeah.
And so I think I've been watching that happen. And entertainment definitely happens a lot where you can go so far left, and then God can pull you back in. And I think left to our own devices, we'll destroy ourselves.
That's so real, man. And
we kind of have a desire to destroy ourselves.
Well, yeah. I mean, because what we want now often isn't really what our soul desires most. So if we don't have something that anchors us so that we are willing to put off what we want now for what our soul desires most, we will destroy ourselves, because what we want now often isn't what is best for us. So so no, that's real. I when you first said that, I was like, wait, hold up, what do you mean nothing is helping? But when you explain it, it makes so much sense, because no matter what we've been placed on this earth for and to do, we cannot change, augment, or remove. It is there, and it will be there forever. Like we don't get to get rid of that. So of course, God is always going to be pointing us back to, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to let that work because that's not what you're here for. I'm not going to let that job work because it's going to take away energy and focus that I need you to do for the thing that I called you to build. So 100%, that's so real.
There was a year recently, right before me and my wife had got back together, and I wasn't talking to my dad, I wasn't talking to my family, I just kind of isolated myself, and I was going through an identity crisis, and this is recent. This is like less than 5 years ago. And I purposely would do the opposite of everything that I would normally do, because I was watching me do the right thing often, quote unquote the right thing, and nothing would come from it. And I'm like, what's the point? What's the point of doing everything right and nothing? You get nothing. It feels like sometimes you feel like you're nothing for it.
Absolutely.
And then, so I remember this one year, I said, you know what, I'm going to do the opposite of everything that I normally would do. So I broke some vows that I had set for myself at a point, vows. I started doing all kinds of stuff, you know, like, not that far, y'all, just relax. But like things that I just wouldn't normally do.
Sure.
Like I was smoking or something like that. Like, I don't smoke weed, but at this point in my life, I did. I was abstinent for 13 years, but this year I said, you know what, I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna lay down with somebody, not what God had me to do, right? I don't know how. I don't want to turn this to a confessional, but this to answer your question. Sometimes there's nothing that I'm personally doing to keep my identity at all. In fact, I'm actively working against it, knowing full well that this is counter to what God needs me to do. And then I watch him step in, and he's like, I've seen enough of this.
Yeah.
This gotta go. That gotta go. I'm gonna clean you up, put you there, and then I'm gonna reestablish your foundation. And that has been a humbling experience as well too, because you know another side of God that you learn is how deep his grace is, how deep his mercy is. And you don't know what grace and mercy is until you're really in need of grace and mercy.
That's a fact.
And then that leads to another testimony. And it's like, and then you realize, I am nothing without God. In and of myself, I'm bound to destruction.
Sure.
And this is what, to answer your question, I don't know. the only thing that's really been keeping my identity together is God's will and might of His
Yeah.
own hand, because I really don't know. You know what I mean?
No, that's
And
real.
and then he just sets you back in place again, and now you're riding the path that you're walking down the path that he would want you to walk down. But you also still need the desire to. He can shake things up all you want. You can still go run after it. But there's some part of you, I think there's some part of every believer that when they're on the wrong side of the tracks, that spirit inside of you lets you know you're on the wrong side of the tracks. And you somehow want to get out of it too.
Yeah.
But then when you finally get back on the right track of it, you know that you're like, what was I thinking? I needed to be here anyway.
Yep.
But it took God coming to rescue me from my own destruction to set me back in place again.
100%, bro. No, that's real. That's so good. All right, so last question, then we're gonna get out of here. It's kind of a fun one. Sometimes it's a deep one. Just depends on the person. You have an opportunity to say something now that you didn't or couldn't say before. So if you were talking to your father, what would you say to your father that you couldn't say growing up? And I'm thinking, like, for you specifically, I'm thinking like during those earlier years, like, preteens, maybe all the way up through 18. What's something that you would say? What would Tony Walters say to Dad now that he couldn't say growing up?
I still can't say.
But you can say it now. You can say it now.
Shut up, bro.
That's what you would say.
Bro, shut up. I promise you, we heard you the first time. We heard you the second time. I promise you, no preaching to the situation is going to change it. Your mouth cannot fix this.
Yeah.
Shut up, bro. What you need right now is presence and silence. Stop talking. Stop preaching. I know you love the Lord and you love the word, but I promise you this person is not hearing that at all. They need something different from you right now.
Yeah.
Shut up, bro.
Chill.
For real. But that's the funny way I would say it.
Sure. No, but that's real though. That is real. I feel like a lot of us can identify with that.
What's the thing, right? When you're involved in church and with God, sometimes you're so in it that you don't know how far out of it everybody else is.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And when preaching is what you do, pastoring is what you do, it can become for a lot of people who you are, and you fail to realize that is a doing, and that doing may not be what a person needs. Sometimes they just need your being. They just need you to be there. They don't need you to preach to them. They don't need you to try to correct anything. They just need you to be. I don't need a pastor right now. I need a parent. I don't need a sermon right now. I just need some solace. Like, could you comfort and support me right now rather than try to give me a sermon?
I don't need advice or wisdom right now.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
When it's probably what they do need, but that's not what they will receive. It's
not what they will receive, but sometimes, like, for those of us who do this, right, we go into fix-it mode, right? And sometimes the fix isn't ready to be presented. It's like, man, if I'm hurting, I need you to bandage the wound. I don't need you to tell me about how to keep myself from getting hurt. I need you to just bandage the wound. Help me just be okay with the pain I'm in right now, rather than you trying to tell me about how to not do it, or, you know what I mean? It's like the wisdom part, that's wonderful, and there's a time and place for it. But I think a lot of us don't know when. Right. So it's like.
And another thing, too, is the ego that happens, too, right? Because then the next thing he would say sometimes when destruction finds you for the choices that you made that he warned you against is, see, if you would have did what I told you to do the first time.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be. Just so you know, bro, that ain't helping.
That ain't helping. It's not helping right now. It's not helping right now. No, that's real.
My pops is the king of, I told you so.
Yeah, I told you so. See, if you had listened, I tried to keep this from if you had to just listen.
And his favorite thing is believe the prophet and you shall prosper. You don't want to listen.
Bro, that's you know what's so funny?
Oh, what's that?
My dad has this saying sometimes, like if something happens, that he either like thought would happen or warned against or something like that, he would say how would he say it? He would say, see, one day y'all gonna believe the prophet. One day y'all gonna believe. It's like, all right. I mean, maybe it's not that nobody believed you. It just things happen.
Yeah. But hey, sometimes, like they say, Christ knows best. A prophet is not receiving his own.
Listen, that's a fact. That's a fact, bro. This has been great. Hey, listen, y'all. I'm prayerful that y'all have enjoyed Tony Walters. Tony, before we leave, if there's a PK out there who's listening to this and they're identifying with your story, or even, maybe they're struggling with taking a leap that you, at least to us, it feels like you're so strong and confident in who you are and what you're doing, and even with your art and artistry and in entertainment, and then and in your faith at the same time. Maybe somebody's struggling with that, or maybe they're struggling with their identity as they're coming out of a home with a pastor who's really strong in their opinions about life, whatever it might be. If there's a PK out there who's really resonating with your story, what would you want to say to them as we kind of wrap up here?
I used to sign off all my blogs like this, and I'll sign off this like this as well too.
Mm.
Whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you're going to, what I will tell you is to keep going and keep growing. That's that too in the middle of glory to glory. You must keep going and you must keep growing. The answers sometimes reveal themselves at the end or on the way to. You're not going to know everything. You're not going to have everything figured out. You just need to trust that you rest in the shadow of the Lord and He will write your stories.
Mm. That's good. That's good, bro. Well, listen, y'all. Drop in the comments what you really enjoyed most about this episode or what resonated with you. Also, make sure you are hopping in the PKs Anonymous community, connecting with each other and talking and sharing some of your experiences and connections with Tony's story. And we will see you again for another great episode of PKs Anonymous. But until then, I want you to remember, you're not alone and you never were. We'll see you next week.